Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln faced obstacles unimaginable to the other candidates for the Republican nomination, in sharp contrast to the comfortable lifestyle these Seward family enjoyed in the secure early childhoods of Chase and Bates before their fathers died. Lincoln's road to success was longer, more torturous, and far less likely. Born on February 12, 1809, in a log cabin on an isolated farm in a slave state, Kentucky. Abraham had an older sister, Sarah, who had died in childbirth when he was 19 years young, and a younger brother who had died in infancy. His father, Thomas Lincoln, never learned to read, and according to Abraham Lincoln, never did it any more in the way of writing than to bunglingly signing his own name. Bunglingly signing his own name. As a 6-year-old boy, young Thomas Lincoln had watched when a Shawnee raiding party murdered his own father. This violent death, Lincoln later suggested, coupled with the very narrow circumstances of his mother, left Thomas Lincoln a wandering, laboring boy, growing up literally without education. He was working as a rough carpenter and a hired hand when he married Nancy Hanks, a quiet, intelligent young woman of uncertain ancestry. In the years following Abraham's birth, the Lincolns moved from one dirt farm to another in Kentucky, Indiana, Illinois. On each of these farms, Thomas cleared only enough land for his family's use. Lack of ambition, joined with insufficient access to a market for surplus goods, to trap Thomas in relentless poverty. In later life, Lincoln neither romanticized nor sentimentalized the difficult circumstances of his childhood. When asked in 1860 by the campaign biographer John Locke Scripps to share the details of his early days, he hesitated. "Why, Scripps, it is a great piece of folly to attempt to make anything out of my early life. It can all be condensed into a single sentence. You will find in Gray's eulogy the short and simple annals of the poor. The traces of Nancy Hanks in history are few and fragmentary. Childhood friend and neighbor of Lincoln's, Nathaniel Grigsby, reported that Mrs. Lincoln was a woman known for the extraordinary strength of her mind among the family and all who knew her. She was superior to her husband in every way. She was a brilliant woman." Nancy's first cousin, Dennis Hanks, childhood friend of Abraham's, recalled that Mrs. Lincoln read the good Bible to Abe, taught him to read and to spell, taught him sweetness and benevolence as well. She was described as beyond all doubt an intellectual woman, said to possess remarkable perception, to be very smart, naturally strong-minded. Much later, Lincoln, alluding to the possibility that his mother had come from distinguished stock, told his friend William Herndon, "All that I am and hope ever to be, I get from my mother. God bless her." In the early autumn of 1818, when Abraham was 9 years old, Nancy Lincoln contracted what was known as milk sickness, a fatal ailment whose victims suffered dizziness and nausea, an irregular heartbeat before slipping into a coma. The disease first struck Thomas and Elizabeth Sparrow, Nancy Lincoln's aunt and uncle, who had joined the Lincolns in Indiana the previous winter. The Sparrows had parented Nancy since she was a child and served as grandparents to young Lincoln. The deadly illness took the lives of the Sparrows in rapid succession, and then before a fortnight had passed, Lincoln's mother became gravely ill. "I'm going away from you, Abraham," she reportedly told her young son shortly before she died, "and I shall not return." In an era when men were fortunate to reach 45 and a staggering number of women died in childbirth, the death of a parent who was commonplace. Of the 4 rivals, Seward alone kept parents into his adulthood. Chase was only 8 when he lost his father. Bates was 11. Both of their lives, like Lincoln's, were molded by loss. The impact of the loss depended upon each man's temperament and the unique circumstances of his family. The death of Chase's father forced young Salmon to exchange the warm support of a comfortable home for the rigid boarding school of a domineering uncle.